Before I begin proper, please excuse the rather rattly sound here. My office is being renovated, very extensively renovated. I mean, gutted from top to bottom in practically every way. There are specific reasons for that. It's an important job. It's a job that kind of crept up on us, shall we say. And I've got my computer back up and running. I've got the sound going on tinny little speakers, not my usual stereo, my 6 speakers that I normally use. I've got the mic fitted here. I bought a new desk for my computer. It's very good and all that. But you know yourself, you have to adjust. The building is still in a heap, an absolute heap, and I'm 5 weeks late on schedule with this. I can explain in the broadest and least incriminating of terms in a moment why I'm 5 weeks late. I won't say too much more in detail about that, but please forgive the rather tinny tone to this particular thing. People have been contacting me and asking me why I haven't been getting videos up. Thank you very much for all of the kind remarks that people have been sending me. It's greatly appreciated. The fact that I might not reply to you, don't draw any bad inference from it. People are busy. You're busy yourself. I'm busy. We're all busy, but don't imagine that when you send me a nice message or email or that kind of thing that I don't appreciate it. Of course I do. I appreciate them all. Now, at the moment, just staying on topic, staying on subject, I am at present listening to a series each week. It's replayed on YouTube. I think they might run it live on Facebook. It's called The Week in Strange. It's really good. For me, it's actually the highlight of the week completely. It's the number one spot of the week for me, is The Week in Strange. It's presented by a woman called Timony Wilde. She's accompanied by Jason Roba and Thomas Sheridan. And it actually follows the very old classic format of panel show, by which I mean, the three of them are talking. Timony does a bit of research beforehand and she comes out with 3 or maybe 4 things that have caught her attention. They may be in recent news, they may be in older news, but they're strange, they're a bit offbeat. They're not the stuff you're going to be, are they any stranger than anything you hear on RTE these days about people changing gender? Really. But, what I mean by that is you're not going to hear it on RTE. You're not going to hear it on RTE. We often hear people talk glibly about the concept of forgiveness. I remember a while ago talking to a woman who said, they say we have to forgive. I said, who's they? Well, no, I said, I don't know. Who's they? Who's the they who say that we have to forgive? Well, she said, I don't know. Well, I said, who do you have to forgive? Well, she said, the people who mistreat you. I said, has it occurred to you that the they who said that you have to forgive might be psychopaths and narcissists who are looking to deflect blame? I said, because, and I didn't say it in those terms because I hadn't analysed it in those terms then. The notion of forgiving your enemies is a Christian one, it's an Abrahamic one, and it's essentially a defeatist one. It's how people lose things, by forgiving your enemies. Don't forgive your enemies, you seek justice. That doesn't mean that you spend your life obsessing about them, but it means that you don't let them away with what they've done to you if they've mistreated you. What's done cannot be undone. You cannot ever get time back. We'll talk about that shortly. But having said that, you can do your best in any given situation to restore or move on as well as you can. You don't owe anybody anything. So I got back to the conversation with the woman and, she was saying, forgiveness. I said, where did you get all this from? I said, because there is one person who you have to forgive. Oh, who's that? She said. I said, you know who it is. No, I don't. I said, you do. I don't. I said, I'm not going to tell you. Well, she said, are you coming out with this thing where I have to forgive myself? Yes, I said, you have to forgive yourself. I said, and you have to forgive yourself unconditionally. I said, you see, when you're dealing with I didn't say this to her, but when you're dealing with the psychopaths who are also narcissists, okay, yeah, you'd forgive yourself, but you also have to evaluate what you did wrong. No, you don't. They don't. They're not that introspective. The idea that psychopaths be saying, oh, well, we're terribly sorry and we'll make sure we don't do it again. Sure, if they did that, they wouldn't be psychopaths now, would they? I am at the moment, and one of the main contributing reasons to why I haven't been doing videos for a little while is because I'm coming out of a situation with a psychopath. And we say to ourselves, one of the problems with that is not just the forgiveness issue, but shame. So people who've been sexually abused can tend to be ashamed of it. And once you stop being ashamed of having been sexually abused in whatever circumstances, maybe as a child or as an adult or whenever, once you forgive yourself for being abused sexually or otherwise, then it becomes an awful lot clearer and it becomes an awful lot easier. So I was abused, not sexually or physically, thank God, for the past 4 weeks. I'm not ashamed. Because it can happen to anyone. If you're listening to this video now, it can happen to you. Reflecting upon it, were there red flags there? Perhaps. But, you're in a situation, we had to get a job done here, and I won't say, now we're getting into the content here, really. I had to get a job done here. My friends know. I've been in contact with my friends for 4 weeks. An individual had worked with a contracting company that he owns on our home some years ago. That was his first job with us. His first job was done satisfactorily. We paid on a weekly basis, and the workmen for the contractor came on a weekly basis. You cannot expect, and this is absolutely serious, you cannot expect workmen to come to a premises or to come to a home or whatever if they're not going to be paid on time. A lot of normies don't realise that. So we contracted in good faith, and with the experience of it, we contracted this person's company again. And the total bill this time was €13,000, and the first 50% was paid at the start. And then a week or so into the job, he asked for the second 50%, and as soon as that check was cleared, the job was abandoned. I don't know any other way to put it. The job was abandoned. I mean abandoned, without notice, without warning. And I very carefully and very clearly do not blame the workmen employed by this company. I blame the owner of the company. I'm not saying anything publicly, either online or in posts or this video, that might incriminate identity at this stage, because I'm hoping to reach some kind of a settlement here regarding this. It would be wrong to imagine that I'm going to take this lying down. I'm not going to take it lying down, but there are ways of doing things, and you must respect those ways of doing things and not compromise yourself. So I'm only going to keep this one in the general. So anyway, the job is abandoned. And what we saw, it was only last week that it finally clicked in my head that this individual is a psychopath, and he is. What we saw was these stages of an abusive relationship. So abandonment, ghosting. Then you chase them up, and they behave as if you should be thanking them for taking your calls. What this person then did was, the owner of the company, he told me that, not to worry about it, but he'd also been talking to my neighbour, and that my neighbour had made certain requests about our property, and he said, I said it would be okay, I'd get the lads to do that for him. Well, I said, you can get him to pay your wages. Oh, but no, I was just trying to be civil. You're not civil to me, I said. Why are you being civil to somebody who's not paying you? I said, he's not, oh no, I get it. I said, you think you're going to get a job from him. You're not. I said, you've lots in common, but trust me, you don't want a job from that individual. Trust me on that one. I said, but anyway, look, I said, you don't make undertakings on behalf of my parents and me. All right, I said, our property, if anybody wishes to discuss our property with us and what we do on our property, they come to us. They don't use you as a... Well, he said, I was watching out for you. No, you weren't, I said, because I'm 48, and I don't need you to watch out for me. I do need you, however, to fulfill a contract that you're not. So, he then, there was just more silence, and the place was just left. And this is the way they are. They're nonchalant about it. They'll deal with you at their pleasure and at their leisure. Got the money, what am I going to do about it? Well, in the short term, what am I going to do about it? I have to wait and get the job finished because his workmen were good, and from what I can see, I may be wrong, I don't know, but from what I can see, so far, it might be okay. But, the job only finished last Wednesday, which should have been a 3-week job that started in August. I finished last Wednesday. And now we're Saturday the 16th, 15th, 13th, Wednesday the 13th of October. A job that should have finished at the end of August. So, I learned my lesson there, not to use this person again. And once it's all done with, we'll see whether or not I end up having to name this person. Or whether it goes to court, or what happens. But after Wednesday, I will say one thing that happened. This individual hired a workman. Oh, very good. He said he's really, really good. One of them was an alcoholic, so I was going around taking beer cans out of the house when this person was drinking on the job. So the next person who he was replaced with was from Brazil and didn't have a word of English and ended up throwing a lot of our personal belongings into a skip. So I had to pay $2,000 to 2 general labourers of mine to empty the skip. To get, heirlooms of ours out of it. Because apparently, you just throw everything that's in a house out. That's what you do, maybe, when you're a cowboy. And I find it difficult to stay calm talking about this. I find it difficult to stay calm. It is a violation. It is every bit as much of a violation as a physical one, because it's happening in your home by somebody who just doesn't give a shit. And he doesn't give a shit. Genuinely, he doesn't give a shit. Now, in relation to my neighbour is not supposed to be contacting us other than by way of a letter. It's agreed with us, it's agreed with other parties that if that neighbour wants to raise anything with our household, he writes a letter. So he's doing anything he can to circumvent it. And of course, I got these breezy texts from your man, the owner, saying, oh, by the way, yeah, I just told your neighbour we'd do X, Y, Z for him in your ground, Oh, did you? Well, is he paying? Well, no, it's not like, is he paying? Is he paying you? And this leads on to something else. Psychopaths get away with it because they are energy vampires. Yes, this person is an energy vampire. Yes, by Wednesday gone out of last week, I was nearly sick with the stress and unhappiness and misery that this scumbag inflicted on my parents and me. And he is scum. He is scum. Now, I'm not identifying him at this stage, but I wouldn't be uncomfortable if he hears this video and hears me calling him scum for what he did to my parents and me, because I found out something else. Once the second check had gone through, he then started sending his men, and they have to, he instructs them. I don't instruct the workers. I instruct him, and he instructs the workers. And by that dint, then, I have a legitimate expectation that he'll be sending people to my home who, A, can speak English, B, are not raving alcoholics. Anyway, as soon as the check went through, he then lined up a load of jobs for his men with Local Heroes. Now, Local Heroes is a scheme by On Board Gosh where people go online and they hire a workman, tradesman, plumber, gas boiler, fitter, that kind of thing, carpenter, and Board Gosh arranges it for them. Now, where our job was 13,000, the Board Gosh jobs would have been 300 or 400. But apparently they were more important to him than our job. Okay, right. So this is what was happening. The men were being sent off on on these quickie jobs, while the boss was pocketing the cash from these quickie jobs, I assume, and we could just wait. when you deal with him, he's clear now. It became clear to me this time. You deal with him at his leisure, at his pleasure. That's how he works. You pay the money, then he'll decide if he feels like doing the job, or if he doesn't, well, that's it. He might and he mightn't. And that's a psychopathic trick, and it's deliberate. They string you along. They maintain the power over you. So, I found this out, that he was doing these jobs. He was sending his men on board gauche jobs. And we can talk more about that at a later date. Now, whether it's the coronavirus or RTE or me or this person or whatever, big scale, small scale, whatever scale, they always come to a point where they're so lazy and they're so arrogant and they're so full of themselves and they're so complacent that they cross a line. I think anybody who's listened to this video up to now, or at about 16 minutes, will realise that that individual has crossed a line with me. He has crossed a line with me. But they don't imagine it'll ever happen to them, because what they rely on is wearing people down, confusing people, gaslighting people, ghosting people, and they're used to it. They get away with it. Let's not, there isn't a happy ending most of the time. They get away with it. They get away with this behaviour. And our government encourages it. Look at the laws that have come in the past 10 years. Look at the way this country is being structured. It's actively encouraged by our government and RTE. So, us ones out here at the moment, and it's only at the moment, everything's temporary, we are on the back foot at the moment. It won't, and I promise you this from the bottom of my heart, it won't always be like this. It won't always be like this. It's like this now. It's okay. We'll survive. We'll get through it. Nobody's died. And I got all my parents' belongings out of the skip anyway. Nobody's died. But they're so used, as I said, to dealing with normies, I suppose, that, you get the money in, the job has been fully paid for. As far as he's concerned, the job is abandoned. Well, I spoke to other former employees of his, and they said that is completely consistent. He's great for the first job, and he treats you like shit for the second job. That's okay, I said, because in this case, there certainly in his instance won't be a third job. I am very sensitive to abusive relationships. I'm very sensitive to things like ghosting, like gaslighting, all of these kind of things. You must understand that psychopaths operate at a different frequency from us. They can't pick up our frequency. So, for example, where the neighbour was attempting to harass me via himself, the way he saw it was, he recognised one of his own there, joined forces with them and harassed me on his behalf. And that won't be forgotten either. That won't be forgotten either. And while the job was taking place here, the neighbour was calling in when I wasn't around and demanding to know what was going on. And, the owner of the company was treating of him, and I've taken a record of that. Oh, but I told he said he'd gone and made a complaint to Fingal County Council. So what? I said, well, I was only looking out for you. No, you weren't. And if he's made a complaint to Fingal County Council, that's between him and Fingal County Council. And if Fingal County Council want to raise it with me, they can. What's it to do with you? You have a job to do here, and you're not doing it because you're going off and getting all the local hero stuff instead. The only reason why I am not saying anything in this video to identify that practitioner is because I've now contacted him and I've said, that's okay, we paid you 13,000, we want 6.5 of it back. And we want you to agree to that by Monday. And if you don't agree to it by Monday, what I mean by agree to it is we don't want to see necessarily, we'd love to see the 6.5 thousand in cash on Monday, but that's unlikely. But what we've said is we want you to agree to that, and then 2 or 3 weeks to have that back with us. I'll give you a big an IBAN because we paid by check. So this was a job done through the books. So it's okay. It's okay. The issue of hiring, immigrants who can't speak English, I'm sure that was all done through the books as well. And the fact then that when this immigrant came who could not, and I mean, I'm not attacking the person for being an immigrant. I'm attacking the person. No, I'm not attacking the person. Well, I am. He shouldn't have taken the job. He was a chancer by taking the job in my home. He was also an imbecile to throw our stuff into a skip. Luckily, we lost nothing. Luckily. But in relation to employment practices and proper hiring of vetted people, and in relation to revenue, and in relation to employers, PRSI, I'm sure everything's above board. I'm sure it's above board. So, the district court here in Ireland, the jurisdictional limit of the district court for a civil claim is 15,000. Now, everybody thinks the district court is just small claims. Small claims, I think, is 1,005 or 2,000. You don't take a small claim in a situation like this. I see the possibility, and I won't say much more, I see the possibility that this may be circuit court. And it will be, if it has to be. And that this may be a lot more than 6,500, because I'm going around looking at things now. But we'll just check that one out. Anyway, at the moment, as far as I'm concerned, it's 6,500. And that'll be a district court case otherwise. Because I can show the district court the texts between him and me, and the communication, and the increasing anger and upset and misery on my part. Anybody who's been in this situation, I'm sure some of you who are listening have been in this situation, it's a misery. The word I'd use is misery. I'm only able to bring myself to speak about it rationally today. It's a misery. And I have to live with a couple who are 91. I have to look after them. I have to get on with the rest of my life. But no. Our friend who owns the company, he shall come first, and we shall wait for him to decide when he will communicate with me. No. This is the narcissism of the psychopath, and the way that they as far as they're concerned, they're so fabulous that I should be lucky that they're even engaging with me. So there are a lot of practices here that I've kept a record of. I hope he hears this video, actually. I would like him to hear this video. I'm not naming him, but the people who know. I did more research on this man and his company, and it's what I said already. He's great for the first job, and then he treats you like crap for the second job. It's that psychopath thing. They don't focus. They just keep moving on. They get bored with you. You're in the can. I can take you for granted. Fuck you is the attitude. And that was the attitude this time. This man is a psychopath. He operates like a psychopath. He's incompetent. He's chaotic. Everything around him is chaos. He's an energy thief. You're drained having him round. You don't want him round. I think of Kirsty MacColl. Kirsty MacColl had one particular song. I was a big fan of Kirsty MacColl. I think her death was a terrible loss and a tragedy. And there was one line in the song, "Sod all your funny little ways. They don't make me laugh these days anymore." Yeah. Because your man has funny little ways. Superficially, he's a great guy, superficially. He's very sound and all that. But in fact, he's none of those things. And for me, a red flag, as I said, was acting as a go-between with an abusive neighbour. That for me was a big red flag, because, again, with the psychopaths, they don't read into the situation fully. They're not on the same frequency as we are. They're not on that frequency. So where it would have been easier for your man to have said to the neighbour, "Don't contact me. If you have an issue with that family, you raise it with them." Oh, no. No, look, Christian, I just said to him, Christian, I said to him, I said we would just do this and that for him just 'cause he'd asked. Really? Well, is he paying your wages? Ah, well, it's not like that. Well, how is it not like that? He is paying your wages. Oh, then could we have the 6,500 second payment back, please? Because you're taking instruction from a stranger in relation to our property. Ah, Christian, I just wanted to be civil. You're not being civil to me. Ah, Christian, he said he's got on to Fingal, so let him get on to Fingal. What's it to do with you? It's not as if I'd like to say that you're working away hard here and that he's disturbing, but you're not. It's not even like that. What's it got to do with you? Get on with the job you're paid for. What's it got to do with you? This is the psychopathic cycle you go through with them. Love bombing, charm. They'd bedazzle you, they have great workers, great job done. Then once in their little reptilian hindbrain, once they think they've got you in, it changes immediately, and it did. The job finished anyway. I mean, it's not done. There's a lot of repair work that has to be done here, but I'll be getting others to do that, and he'll be paying for that. Well, the 6,500 will pay for it. The 6,500 will catch us up here. It'll get us to the end of the thing. Also, this particular job is extremely urgent, and it had to be done. And as I said, no matter how urgent the job was for him, he wasn't pushed. Those normies with their 300 or 400 euro local heroes jobs, that comes first. And his attitude was like that. Ah, but there's an old woman in County Meath. I don't care. That was the implicit attitude. Look, the local heroes has to come first, but we'll have a think about showing up for you when we fucking feel like it. I was sick with tiredness on Wednesday, but it was a sense of relief. When we have dealt with psychopaths who are energy vampires, there is a physical impact it has on us. I know it now. I forgive myself. I don't forgive him. I forgive myself. Not that I ever didn't forgive myself, because I didn't blame myself. Because, Thomas Sheridan and other people have taken me across a line where I know what's happening here. Reflecting upon it, could I have known that he was a psychopath? No. Why not? Because the first job was well done. Because he paid attention to it and he was anxious to keep our custom. Once he got the second job and once that second check went through, he abandoned the job effectively once the second check went through. Ask yourself this question. Do district court judges in Ireland, have they seen that kind of thing before? Even the circuit court, have they seen that kind of thing before? Once the final payment is made, gone. Gone. Job abandoned. No notice. No, not even telling us. Ah, sure, you can just wait till it suits me. Well, that's psychopaths for you. What has happened with coronavirus is a more profound event, I think, than in world history. In the same way that in 1940 in Europe, they were at the start of what up to now, anyway, was the most profound event in world history, the Second World War. The most destructive, cataclysmic event ever, the Second World War. I would describe the Second World War as even more cataclysmic than the fall of the Roman Empire. But what we're entering into now, and we are only, by the way, I just want to point this out to you, it's only just about to begin. Right? Don't forget something. There was a large precipitation before the Second World War really, shall we say, got going. And the Second World War only really got going with Operation Barbarossa when Hitler reneged upon the Soviet-German Pact of Non-Aggression That, I would say that was the start of when the Second World War really, when shit got serious. And after that, very quickly, it got very serious. The Nazi invasion of Belarus was a second Holocaust. We don't hear that much about it, but the Nazi invasion of Belarus was a second Holocaust. And the people of Belarus were right in the brunt of the Nazi invasion of the Soviet Union. Much more than the Russians were. The Belarusians really got it hard. It may well explain why Belarus today is the way it is, and I'm not condemning them, far from it. Alexander Lukashenko, you know, he is, for all whatever drawbacks or flaws he may be held to have, Alexander Lukashenko is committed to running the country as a sovereign state. You know, I've spoken to Belarusian people from Belarus, and they've said, you know, it's not a dictatorship. It's a conservative country with a lot of emphasis on law and order. Black Lives Matter and those kind of things. You know, the rainbow flag. They don't get going. Belarus looks east, it looks to Russia, it doesn't look west. So wokeness hasn't really bitten hard in Belarus. But countries like it, and Hungary and Poland and what used to be Czechoslovakia, they're very, very wary of what the Irish people have rolled over and taken. The Irish people, believe it or not, as condemning as we are of them and scornful as we are, they need to forgive themselves. We talk about a cult, and the cult of politicians, but there's also a cult in this country of RTE, and how so many of the normies just will not allow themselves in their heads to question the rectitude and magnificence and splendour of RTE, the awesomeness of RTE. I would never have had a cultish attachment to RTE, but that broke for me in 2019 when as I've said before, when I saw them lying for Varadkar. Objectively, I always saw Varadkar as a complete personal and professional dud. A dud in every way. The man is in every way a dud. Varadkar is a dud. Yesterday, I stopped in Clontarf to get a coffee. And I went into this, oh God, it was a real Ranelagh place in Clontarf on the seafront. But anyway, I went in, and there was a guy behind the counter. I said, excuse me. I said, do you mind if I come in without a face covering? Oh, no, he was foreign. Not at all, he said. But it is, he actually said this. He said that it's unusual for somebody to ask not to come in without the face covering. He said, but are you exempt? I said, I am. Well, that's fine, he said. We do not mind. So, I mean, already it was good vibes. He said, do you want? I can give you a free mask. No, thank you. I said, I don't want to wear one. That's okay. He said, what will you order? I ordered my coffee and that. He said, he asked me my name, so I gave him a made-up name. And he asked me just to stand in a queue. So, in the queue... Now, I mean, I know what the people who know me are going to say about this. Go on, say it. Go on, you can if you want. There was this young motorbike guy. All right, there you go. Right. Was I checking him out? Was I looking at him? Yes. Right? He was in 20s. You know, he was about 23 or 24. This rough-looking guy in his early 20s in the motorbike gear, wearing a mask. And, yeah, there he was. And I was waiting, and he was ahead of me. And he turned to me. And I'm going to imitate his accent and the way he spoke. Right, here we go. Excuse me, you might like to go ahead of me because I could be quite a while here. I'm getting some items for a number of people. Well, you could have knocked me down with a feather. He spoke like me. How many people speak like me? You know, like when you listen to the woke act, the likes of fucking Owen McDermott. But this young man, he probably had to have done speech and drama by the way he spoke. It could blow me away. Because he looked totally discordant from the actual voice and accent that came out. Oh, I said, thank you. He said, you're very welcome. So, And you can draw whatever inference you like next. I would took the coffee and sat outside. And he walked out with an older man who had a big beard, who was also in the biker gear. Right? Now, just, if you're laughing listening to this, just shut the fuck up, right? Okay? Okay? And the two of them took a sideways glance at me. And the older man said, well, that was very polite of you. And the younger man said, well, I'm very well known for my consideration. And the two of them went and sat over at the far end and had their coffee together. Well, oh, stop. Stop. I'm glad I stopped off in Clontarf. You see, you can always find diamonds in the shite, can't you? I'm glad I stopped in Clontarf. But he doesn't go to show that appearances can be deceiving. And we don't... I mean, Oscar Wilde said, those who don't judge a book by its cover are stupid. That's right. You know, we have to go on appearance. And he was a motorbiker. I know I would love motorbiking. It's not a midlife crisis thing, guys. It's all right. I know I would love motorbiking. Because I'd love the outdoors in it. And yeah, I'd love the boots and leather as well. Yeah, of course I would. But getting onto a motorbike, going down the country, going down the west of Ireland, up to Wicklow, the mountains, all of that... the speed that you can have, the motorways, the country roads. Of course, I'd love motorbiking, but unfortunately, it's simply too dangerous. When I looked at that young man, I always thought of the risk he's taking. And when you hear about the accidents that can happen to people who motorbike, you know, I really sincerely hope, very sincerely, that it doesn't happen to him, because he looked like such a nice young man. Okay, he was hot and dishy as well. Yeah, okay, right. But also he seemed nice. Genuinely, he seemed nice. I'd say that about a woman as well. If you come across a nice woman. Many years ago, I was in a cafe in Dublin, and I remember a woman walked down the stairs, and I just knew from the way that she was walking that she was a nice woman. Believe it or not, from her gait and her stance, I knew she was a nice woman. And he's a nice young man, and I'm sure the older man with them was a nice man as well. I'm saying that earnestly. I'm sure he was bikers can be rather like rugby people. You can meet some wankers who are bikers. And I have. But the vast majority of motorbike men are actually really nice men. They can be gruff sometimes, and some of them can be wankers, as I said. But they can be very, very nice people. Like rugby men. Rugby guys can be very, very nice people. Really nice, well-rounded, kind, sociable, polite people. That's been my experience of rugby people. Even when I was teaching the boys in secondary schools, I was teaching, the boys would be, they'd be top-notch. Then, every while, with rugby, you'd hear somebody getting a catastrophic injury. And it's like the motorbiking. The catastrophic injuries that happen in rugby and motorbiking. They entered it of their own free will. You must remember that. I'm sure that if I had said to that young man yesterday, well, I would never, I don't talk at people that way, but let's say, hypothetically, we've been having a conversation, maybe post-coitally. Sorry, I couldn't resist that. But, let's say we'd been having a conversation and I'd said to him, the risk. And I wouldn't even say to him, are you aware of the dangers of motorbikeing? Because that's sounding like somebody in Fine Gael or RTE. He is aware. He is aware. I'm thinking of the way I address people. I'd be saying to him, of course you know the dangers. And I know what he'd say back, yes, but it's worth it. And I've accepted it. So it's a conversation that you don't even have to have with somebody. But I just was so amused at the way that the two of them walked out of the shop and cast this glance at me. You're very polite, said the older man. Oh, yes, I'm well known for my consideration. Yeah, I bet you are. I bet you are. I'm enjoying this talk now, and I'm looking around the building and hoping that the ceiling doesn't come down overnight. Yup. When you have a psychopath, when you let them into your home, when you put them in a position of trust, one must accept that you will not get over it immediately. I went to a psychopathic secondary school. I believe, reflecting upon it, that I suffered from soul loss. Because I compare myself now to the person I was when I was in my early 20s, before I came out of the closet. And I don't like the person I reflect upon. You know, and I think of how I had to learn to forgive myself. And I had to learn that it wasn't my fault. That, you know, that it was their fault. They were psychopaths. You know, and psychopaths attract. So this contractor and my next door neighbour, they attracted each other. And thinking of the neighbour, that is a type who is looking for absolutely any weakness. So he knows that he'll just hit a complete brick wall with me. He knows that he's instructed not to contact my parents because he was using one of my parents to get at me. So what can he do? What can he do? There have been a lot of different contractors working on this site since July. Every single one of them has been contacted on a nearly daily basis by my next door neighbour. Every single one of them told him to fuck right off. Metaphorically or actually, because I heard it. Every one of them did that, except one. Because in that instance, likes attract. They identify in each other. They at their very primitive level, and they are primitive, they see the commonality. Okay, right, not in my money and not in my time. I lost 4 weeks. I lost 4 weeks of my time because I employed a psychopath and allowed him into my home. I lost 4 weeks of my time. Money doesn't matter. Even things, even precious heirlooms, wedding photos, jewellery, they don't really matter. Time is the most valuable asset of all. You will never, ever, ever get time back. And I lost 4 weeks of my time so that he could get jobs out of local heroes and make £3, 300 or 400 here and there while he'd taken our money. And for that, I can never, ever forgive him. Till I breathe my last, I can never forgive him for that. Nor do I intend to. And you see, it's what I said earlier. Psychopaths they're not on our frequency. They don't understand the sincerity of emotions of somebody who they have got genuinely angry. And I am angrier now with that person than I have been in 25 years. Because he stole from me. He stole my time to make money from local heroes. Normies who don't know how to turn a tap or something. This is how normies get in your way, you know, and don't they? A friend of mine, you know, he said it to me, don't normies get in your way? Aren't they just a nuisance, normies? Yeah. Yeah, well, hey, 75%.